I escaped my toxic home. Now everyone blames me for my brother's downfall. I am the older sibling. For my entire life, I have been the shock absorber, the translator, the therapist, and the security guard for my family. My parents are, to put it bluntly, people who should never have been allowed to keep a goldfish, let alone raise two human beings. They are emotionally vacant, reactive, and remarkably skilled at shifting the entire burden of their household onto whoever is standing closest. After my brother was born, that person was me. My brother is 13. He is also a child with a laundry list of diagnoses: ODD, oppositional defiant disorder, ADHD, and disruptive mood dysregulation disorder. Growing up, I didn't have a childhood, I had a career in crisis management. If I wanted to go to a friend's house, he had to come. If I wanted to join a club, he had to be there. Most of the time, that meant I just didn't go, because taking a child with ODD to a library or a movie theater is an exercise in public humiliation and physical exhaustion. I missed my own high school graduation ceremony because he decided that day he didn't want to go, and my parents, rather than telling him, "Too bad," told me that they couldn't leave him alone and they weren't going to deal with his meltdown in the auditorium. So, I sat in the living room in my cap and gown while my parents watched TV and my brother played video games. That was my milestone. But when I was home, things were manageable. That's the word everyone uses. "You have a way with him," my mom would say. "He only listens to you," my dad would chime in. What they really meant was, "We have successfully abdicated our parental duties to you, and as long as you are here to be the buffer, we don't have to face the consequences of our own failure." I left 6 months ago. I got a job, I saved every cent, and I moved. I didn't run away in the middle of the night. I told them for a year I was leaving. I told them they needed to step up. I told them the balance was shifting. They didn't believe me until the U-Haul was in the driveway. Since the day I left, my brother has gone on a downward spiral that looks like a car crash in slow motion. He stopped engaging in therapy because I wasn't there to drive him and sit in the waiting room to make sure he didn't bolt. He stopped taking his medications because our parents didn't want to fight with him every morning about swallowing a pill. He went back to self-medicating with marijuana, which culminated in a marijuana-induced manic episode. My mom called me hysterical while he was being loaded into an ambulance. He spent 14 days in a psychiatric ward. And the arrests. My God, the arrests. He has been arrested 4 times in 6 months. The most recent one was the big one. He found an Uber driver's car idling while the driver was dropping off food. He just got in and drove. He's 13. He doesn't know how to drive. He could have killed someone. He could have been killed. Because nobody was physically hurt, the court dropped it to unauthorized use of a vehicle, a misdemeanor. His punishment is a boys' club diversion program. Every time the phone rings, it's my parents blaming me. "He wouldn't have stolen that car if you were here to talk him down," my mom says. My brother has even told me directly, "If you want me to stop getting arrested, just come back. If you're home, I'll be good." It is a hostage situation. He is holding his own life hostage to force me back into a cage. People keep telling me that I'm shitting on a child by calling him a delinquent. I'm not. I'm stating a legal and behavioral fact. He has been arrested 4 times. He is engaging in high-risk criminal behavior. Yes, he has trauma. Yes, our parents are the root cause of that trauma. I reported our house to my teachers years ago, and CPS came, but my brother refused to speak. He told me privately he didn't want to be taken away because he likes his lifestyle, he likes having no rules, he likes the marijuana, he likes the lack of structure. He just wants me there to make sure the house doesn't actually catch fire. I am being told by my extended family that I am weak and scum. One of my cousins actually said to me, I would die for my brother before I'd let him end up in juvie. How can you sit in your apartment knowing he's out there ruining his life? My response to that is, why is it my job to die for him? Why is it my job to set my future on fire to keep him warm? I am 22 years old. If I go back now, I will never leave. I will become the permanent caretaker for a brother who has learned that crime is an effective way to manipulate his sister, and a daughter to parents who view me as a free domestic servant. My parents' hands are tied, but not because they can't do anything, it's because they won't. They aren't going to change. They are never going to suddenly become the parents we needed. When I say their hands are tied, I mean that in the context of their character. They have reached the limit of what they are willing to do, which is practically nothing. My brother knows this. He is 13, but he is incredibly smart. He knows that if he causes enough chaos, the pressure on me will become unbearable. He is using his own destruction as a weapon. How am I the asshole for refusing to be a shield for a 13-year-old who refuses to help himself? He won't take the meds. He won't talk to the therapist. He won't stay in the house at night. Everyone acts like if I were there, I would magically solve these issues. I wouldn't. I would just be the one staying up until 4 a.m. wandering the streets looking for him so my parents could sleep peacefully. I would be the one getting yelled at by the police instead of them. Let's talk about the reality of being the responsible one. When I was 17, I had a chance to go on a school trip to Europe. I had worked a part-time job at a grocery store for a year to save the $3,000. 2 weeks before the trip, my brother had a crisis. He got suspended from school for throwing a chair at a teacher. My parents told me that they couldn't handle him while I was gone for 10 days. They told me I had to stay. They didn't offer to pay me back the money I lost on the non-refundable deposit. They just said, "We need you here." I stayed. I spent those 10 days sitting in a darkened living room with a brother who threw things at my head if I tried to turn on a light, while my parents went out to dinner to get away from the stress. That has been my entire life. Now that I've finally tasted air, everyone is trying to shove me back underwater. They say I'm victim-blaming my brother. I'm not. I know he's a victim of my parents. But I am also a victim of my parents. Why is his victimhood a valid reason to destroy my life, but my victimhood is selfishness? I didn't stop him from taking his meds. I didn't hand him the marijuana. I didn't leave the keys in that Uber. He is responsible for his actions. Having ADHD and ODD explains why things are harder for him, but it doesn't give him a get-out-of-jail-free card to ruin everyone else's existence. Am I supposed to wait until he's 18? 21? By then, I'll be 30. I'll have spent my entire youth as a human buffer. My friends, the ones who had normal parents, look at me with this pitying judgment. But he's just a baby, one girl told me. A baby who stole a car. A baby who knows exactly which buttons to push to make me cry. I'm being told that the alternative is far worse. They mean that if I don't go back, he'll end up in long-term juvenile detention or dead. And they're right. That is a very real possibility. But why is the only solution me losing my life? Why is there no option where my parents are held accountable? Why is there no option where the state steps in? I feel like I'm being sacrificed. Like the family has gathered around and decided that I'm the one who has to be thrown into the volcano so the crops will grow. And for some reason, saying, "No, I want to live," makes me the scum of the earth. Since the manic episode, things have gotten even weirder. My brother calls me from the hospital and whispers, "I'm only doing this because you left. If you come back, I'll be the person you want me to be." That is textbook emotional abuse. If a boyfriend said that to me, people would tell me to run for the hills. But because it's a younger brother, I'm expected to find it heartbreaking and sweet. It's not sweet. It's terrifying. I told my mom yesterday, "You need to lock the doors. You need to call the police the second he walks out. You need to stop making him grilled cheese after he screams in your face." Her response? "I can't do that, it's too hard. It's easier when you're here." Of course it's easier. It's easier for everyone except me. I am tired of being the only adult in a house full of people who refuse to grow up. My parents are 50 years old, they can learn to manage a teenager. My brother is 13, he can learn that stealing cars has consequences. People keep saying I'm selfish for putting my future first. Maybe I am. But after 22 years of putting everyone else first, maybe I've earned a little selfishness. I'm not a parent. I didn't choose to bring a child with ODD into this world. I was just the girl who happened to be born first. So, am I the asshole? Am I a coward? Should I go back and save him, even if it means I never get to save myself? Or is it okay to let the fire burn? Update. It has been a little over 3 months since I made my original post, and I didn't expect to come back with an update this long or this complicated. When I wrote the first post, everything still felt like a moral argument I was losing. Now it feels less like an argument and more like watching consequences unfold in real time, slow and uncomfortable, without the dramatic clarity people imagine when they give advice online. Nothing magically stabilized after I left. If anything, the situation escalated before it started settling into something resembling reality. The biggest shift is that the blame campaign against me didn't fade the way people promised it would. It intensified once my family realized I wasn't coming back. For the first month after my post, my phone barely stopped ringing. My parents alternated between anger and desperation depending on what crisis they were dealing with that day. One call would be accusations about abandoning family, followed hours later by pleading requests for advice, because my brother refused to go to school again, or had locked himself in his room, after destroying something in the house. They weren't calling because they missed me. They were calling because they didn't know how to function without the system they had relied on for years, me absorbing everything before it reached them. I stopped answering most of those calls. That decision alone made me the villain in every family group chat. Apparently silence was interpreted as cruelty rather than self-preservation. Extended relatives who had never once visited our house suddenly became experts on my moral failure. People who never witnessed a single meltdown, police visit, or sleepless night decided I had abandoned a helpless child. None of them offered to help my parents. None volunteered to take my brother for even a weekend. Their involvement began and ended with lectures directed at me. About 5 weeks after my original post, my brother was arrested again. This one scared me more than the car incident because it was reckless in a different way. He and 2 older kids were caught trying to break into a closed convenience store after midnight. The police contacted my parents, and my mom contacted me within minutes, hysterical, repeating that this never would have happened if I were home. Hearing that felt strangely distant. I realized she genuinely believed my physical presence functioned like some behavioral medication he no longer had access to. The court didn't treat it lightly this time. Because it was another offense while already enrolled in a diversion program, the judge ordered a stricter supervision plan. Mandatory therapy attendance, medication compliance checks, curfew monitoring, and regular reporting requirements were added. My parents complained endlessly about how unfair and exhausting it was, which revealed something uncomfortable. For the first time, they were being forced to parent whether they wanted to or not. They tried to push that responsibility back onto me almost immediately. My dad suggested I temporarily move back, just until things calmed down. He framed it as a short-term sacrifice, the same language they always used when asking me to give something up. That phrase hit differently this time because I finally understood there was never a finish line. Until things calmed down had defined my entire childhood. I said no. That refusal triggered the worst conversation I've ever had with my parents. It wasn't shouting. It was colder than that. My father told me that families who care about each other don't abandon responsibility. My mother said I had changed since leaving, and not in a good way. According to them, independence had made me selfish and detached. The implication was clear: the version of me they approved of was the one who sacrificed everything without question. After that call, something inside me shifted permanently. I stopped trying to convince them to understand. For years I thought if I explained myself clearly enough, they would eventually recognize how much pressure had been placed on me. Now I see they understood perfectly, they just preferred the arrangement that benefited them. My brother's behavior toward me also changed. Earlier, his calls were emotional and manipulative, focused on convincing me to come back. Recently they became colder. He started treating me less like a sister and more like someone who had betrayed him personally. During one conversation, he told me outright that I chose strangers over family. Hearing that hurt more than anything my parents said, because I know where that idea came from. It wasn't a 13-year-old forming an independent conclusion. It was the narrative constantly reinforced around him. What complicates everything is that I don't think he's consciously malicious. He's angry, impulsive, and deeply used to a system where chaos produced attention and concessions. When I lived there, I unknowingly reinforced that pattern by stepping in before consequences landed. Without me, consequences are finally reaching him directly, and he hates it. The psychiatric hospitalization after his manic episode became a turning point in an unexpected way. During follow-up evaluations, clinicians apparently made it very clear to my parents that consistency and structure were non-negotiable. Medication refusal could no longer be ignored. Therapy attendance wasn't optional. For once, professionals weren't allowing my parents to shrug and wait for me to fix things. They struggled with that reality. My mom complained constantly about arguments every morning over medication. My dad resented having to monitor homework and curfew. But slowly, something changed. Not because they suddenly became good parents, but because external systems forced accountability onto them. My brother didn't immediately improve. The first few weeks were rough. He tested boundaries constantly, pushing until someone gave up. This time, however, there was no older sibling stepping in to smooth things over. The consequences stuck. He lost privileges. School staff became involved more directly. Probation officers checked in. The structure he had resisted began closing in around him. Ironically, that structure did more in 2 months than my presence ever could. That realization has been both relieving and painful. I spent years believing I was the only thing keeping him stable. Watching professionals achieve progress through consistency instead of emotional exhaustion forced me to confront how unhealthy my role had been. I wasn't helping him learn accountability. I was shielding him from it. The guilt hasn't disappeared, though. It shows up in strange moments. I'll see a kid around his age at the grocery store and wonder if my brother ate dinner that night or if another argument exploded at home. I still check my phone too often, bracing for bad news. Leaving didn't erase concern, it just removed me from direct impact. About a month ago, something unexpected happened. My brother called me without yelling or bargaining. The conversation felt awkward, almost formal. He talked about school for a few minutes, mentioned the diversion program activities, and complained about early curfew checks. There was no demand for me to return. No emotional ultimatum. Just conversation. It wasn't warm, but it wasn't hostile either. It felt like talking to an actual sibling instead of a responsibility. That moment hit harder than any crisis call. For the first time, our interaction wasn't based on me managing his life. It was just two people talking. My parents, however, remain angry. They still frame everything as damage caused by my departure. Even improvements are twisted into proof that things would be better if I came back permanently. They refuse to acknowledge that outside intervention only happened because I wasn't there buffering consequences anymore. Extended family opinions haven't softened much either. Some relatives stopped contacting me entirely, which initially felt devastating. Now it mostly feels quiet. The absence of constant judgment has been oddly peaceful. I didn't realize how much emotional noise surrounded me until it disappeared. Meanwhile, my own life has continued moving forward in ways that still feel unreal. I have routines now that don't revolve around crisis management. I make plans without calculating whether someone else will sabotage them. I attended a work event recently and stayed the entire time without worrying about emergency phone calls. That sounds small, but it felt enormous. There are still moments where doubt creeps in. When things go wrong for my brother, part of me wonders if staying would have prevented it. Then I remember the years I stayed and things still went wrong. The difference is that back then, I absorbed the fallout quietly so everyone else could pretend the system worked. The biggest realization since leaving is that my family didn't actually lose stability when I moved out. They lost convenience. Stability built on one child sacrificing everything was never real stability. It was avoidance disguised as functionality. My brother's future is still uncertain. He's 13, impulsive, and carrying more emotional weight than a kid should. Some days he cooperates. Other days he pushes boundaries hard enough to scare everyone again. Nothing about this situation is neatly resolved. But responsibility is finally distributed where it belongs instead of concentrated entirely on me. I don't feel heroic for leaving. I don't feel proud most days. Mostly I feel tired and a little sad about how long it took to understand that love and obligation aren't the same thing. People still ask whether I regret it. The honest answer is complicated. I regret that my brother grew up in a house that made any of this necessary. I regret that he interprets boundaries as abandonment. I regret that our relationship may never fully recover from years of unhealthy roles. What I don't regret anymore is leaving. For the first time, I'm not living as the emergency plan for other people's failures. The world didn't end when I stepped away. The problems didn't vanish, but they also didn't prove that I was the only solution. If anything, stepping out forced the situation into the open where real intervention could finally happen.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Daily Tales Update for more such stories.